When Chris Newman told me that he was involved with removing a big oak tree and that I should have a look at it, just in case I'd be interested, I sort of just shined him on a little bit and made some excuse about being all done with that sort of thing. But he kept after me. So I broke down and met him at the site to look the situation over, and I was stunned at the perfection of this beast. We made a video about the whole process, and I hope you enjoy that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy seeing this thing turned into lumber. So you saw Luke lift that log, this log, off the trailer. And it was a little dicey because the grapples on that big old machine, I mean, they hold, but 10,000 pounds is 10,000 pounds. But since I was here last, these guys putting together this operation to put a roof over their sawing operation, and they've wrestled this hog in between this slabber. This is called a slabber, right, John?
Correct.
Okay, so let me introduce these guys. This is John, Luke, and Josh.
Joel.
See how close I was? Joel. And they bring a really unique skill set. And I'm hoping it's unique because this is a unique log. Let's talk about how we're going to approach this thing, what you've done to it this far, what this machine is like, and how we're going to capture the clear vertical grain out of this thing.
Okay, so the idea is that we set this log up with the flat side on top, and the bottom we'll have to work on the bottom side of it a little bit to figure out what we want to do with it.
Let me step in on you. So what a lot of people don't realize is that not every tree is a gun barrel. They're not all round, they're not all even, they're not all straight. And so this oak tree grew in a place and in such a way that one side is pretty flat and the other side is pretty not flat. Okay. And so John's point is they have to work with that. Go ahead.
Correct. And so our initial cut with the slabber, and it's basically a chainsaw slabber, and it can cut up to a 5-foot wide log.
Wow.
And so our first cut is going to come down somewhere in this neighborhood, just to kind of clean things up. It's a little hard to see, but we'll get the top flat. That's the goal, is just get whatever it takes to get the top flat, and the chain has to stay in the wood in order that it doesn't ride out of the cut.
Float out.
And so once we get this top piece done, then we're going to drop down to somewhere. This distance between here and here is going to determine the width of the boards that you want, Scott.
That we come out and chop out like this.
Correct. We'll cut them like that. So how wide do you want those boards to be?
Well, wider is better if we don't have to give up much fleck to get it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, 8-inch minimum, 10-inch better, 12-inch beautiful, okay. Anywhere in there.
Okay, so I'm going to think that from here, this line, from our first cut down to our second cut, we can possibly do 10 inches.
10 inches would
be
all
right. We'll
give
you 10 inches.
That'd be great.
And so let's just say that there to there is about 10 inches.
Uh-huh.
And then we will take this top rounded slab off, and we will set it off to the side.
Call it a cant.
A cant.
And the darn thing's going to weigh 2,000 pounds almost. It's heavy.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. And then we'll set it over there, and we will take a chainsaw, and we'll just cut it down, basically down from here to here.
Rip it.
Just rip it right down the middle so that we can actually manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Our sawmill over there will cut 34 inches as a maximum height, but we don't want to do that.
No.
We want to be able to control the work up better. So the goal, as you were saying, is to get as much of the ray fleck as possible. I don't know if you can zoom that in. The rings on this log will run like this. These little cracks actually are the ray flecks that we want to actually run the sawmill. If you cut them right down that ray fleck there, or if you split that ray fleck, then that's where you get the quarter sawn look.
That's where the flex shows up.
Yeah, time. That's a medullary ray.
Uh-huh.
And if they're very thin, and if you split that, that's what causes
they show up.
That's what makes their flex show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that ray fleck, the medullary ray that's split in half. See,
that's great information. I hadn't put together that these checks that run to the heart out to the circumference are down the medullary rays. It's that part of the cellular structure kind of pulling apart.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Good intel.
Did you have to dry for those to appear? Are those appearing like when you dropped it off here? or did those show up as it's been sitting here for a few?
I think they showed up after it's been sitting here. You waxed
I did. I waxed
the
the
log, and that's the right thing to do. But even wax won't hold it together,
it,
so
yeah.
to speak. But it slows it down
Yeah.
dramatically.
And that helps once it's in the board too. It keeps
Correct.
that check
Absolutely.
from running in the board.
Absolutely.
And it was anchor seal, I think, that I put on there.
Yeah, that's good. We use the same stuff here. And so the goal will be, you wanted 9/4, so that's 2 1/4 inches.
Yep, some of it. I think I'm going to do about 50-50, 9/4 and 5/4, inch and 3/16, whatever you guys saw too on the.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
I think we'll break it up about 50-50.
Everybody changes their mind on a regular basis
And
when
I'm
they
not
see a
done
lot.
changing yet. Yeah.
Okay, so 5/4 and 9/4.
Yes.
So 5/4, you want 5/4 lumber, or do you want 5/4 sawn 1 1/4 thick?
Saw it 1 1/4 thick and plane it to 15/16.
Okay, so that'll end up being 4/4 lumber.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to saw it 5/4 to get 4/4
Yep,
lumber.
finish. Yep.
And then we'll saw it 9/4, which is 2 1/4, and we'll get 1 15/16 lumber.
Beautiful. Then I have some material to make doors or something like that.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, that's not dumb, is it? That's a reasonable
No, that's
way.
perfect.
Because if I turn out needing
Yeah.
the thinner boards, I'll bring it back. You guys can resaw those.
Yeah,
2 inch.
absolutely.
That's kind of what I was thinking. We could always break those down.
Well, you rarely get wide boards that are quarter sawn so you will find a good use
There'll
for
be a
those
use
thick
for those.
boards. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a rare thing.
Okay.
Opening face, 10 inches. Then, because this is the dead center of the log, most of this wood here, around here, is really not going to be very good.
Yeah.
But if we take this next, go from here to here is 10 inches, then we take another good size bite, and we will want to calculate that out at 2 3/8 inches per board. That includes the saw curve. And so we'll measure it from this line down here someplace.
So these things will come out of here regularly. So you got the back stand is the same dimension.
Yeah, and this will just be one big piece all the way across, so that also will be very heavy. And then we'll set that over on the logs, and then we'll rip it. Once again, right down the middle. Just put a chalk line on it, rip it. We're going to be working on the low value wood.
Yep.
So if we aren't perfect with the chainsaws, really doesn't hurt anything.
Doesn't hurt. And we're not going to take a heavy slab out of this. I see a fractured back for somebody moving that thing in my shop.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So, but these will be heavy enough. So these boards, let's just say this piece, it goes all the way to here, and then the other, it goes here someplace. There's going to be about 8 really wide boards that go from the middle of the cant all the way out. And we're going to, on the sawmill again, we will set this chunk, and we'll just saw it like this into 9/4. These are going to be some fantastic boards.
Sawing through that crotch up there on that figure. Holy smokes.
Yeah, so these will be amazing.
So when I saw this thing standing in their backyard, I thought, I was done chasing white oak, but I just couldn't say no to this. And John, who's been around this specific business for 40 years, confirms this is kind of a white buffalo. You don't see an Oregon white oak this size, this smooth, this long often. So it's going to be complicated. You just heard them talking about how in the world do you break 10,000 pounds of this stuff down into manageable pieces. But we're not sure. But by the time the sun goes down, we're going to be a lot smarter and probably maybe have a couple smashed fingers to show for our effort.
I think your size is high.
If we can capture some of this fleck, that is radical.
Well, we're right darn near in the middle, so.
Yep. Let me point out that it was just about a month ago I was down running my old sawmill, sawing a cedar log up into 1x and taking 1/3 of an inch for kerf for sawdust every time I ran the carriage by the head rig. I'm sure glad that's not the case today. These little wood misers take less than 1/8 of an inch for kerf for sawdust every time you cut a line. There's a world of difference between 1/8 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch when you're making boards out of a log this nice. So this sawdust is completely different than the sawdust off a circle rig. It is very fine. There's some little particles in there, but it is more dust than chips. So this is an example of really the only significant defect in the log, and I cut it off of the other cant. It was up in that fork in the crotch up at the top. And it's beautiful, but I'm not sure how to use it. That's going away. So one of the realities is when you're sawing a tree that has grown up in proximity to people, there's going to be hardware. And so here we are maybe 40% of the way through that tree, and we found one spike, probably 100 years under the surface. I mean, the bark was right out here, and so yeah, it's way on in there. We're going to chop it out because it just can't stay in there and be any good to me in the shop. And we've got to put a new blade on the mill because this lumber is too nice to take a chance on beginning to no longer cut straight just because you want to save a blade. No, time to put on a blade. There it is right there. Got a couple little defects, but nothing that can't be dealt with, I'm quite sure. I don't know where I would go to get another board like that. Flip them over, yeah. So you've seen J&B Wood Products take care of the oak lumber for me before. They dry and plain and dry. They understand exactly how to combine air drying and kiln drying in order to get the best product you can get out of these Oregon hardwoods. And Bob Farley is the guy at the point of the spear who makes the decisions in the field with the machinery about how to get the best possible product. And so I was talking to him about what John and his boys did sawing that big log up for me, and he said, I think those boards are nice enough that we should plane them green. Before we sticker and air dry those things for a while, let's plane it. Get the sawdust off of there so there's no staining of the wood. And with a perfectly uniform thickness on all the pieces, that's going to stack nice and flat and tight and probably will get you the best outcome. So I decided, I'm going to take Bob's advice again. He's never let me down. He knows exactly what's going on. And so I went ahead and invested a little money and a little time in making sure that the stacks are perfect before we let the time go by that has to go by before we can really see what's inside of these boards. Well, that's it. Nothing to do now but wait. Let some time go by. Let the process mature before I dive in and try to make something beautiful out of this beautiful, beautiful old oak tree. That's the way it is, isn't it? Sometimes a big part of doing a job right is having the patience to let a little time go by. Not easy. Sometimes it's really important. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.